all those who are unable to attend this evening, whether it be physical or spiritual hindrances. God, help us to reach out to them and help them in any way that we can. And thank you so much for your Son, Jesus Christ, and his willingness to die for our sins. It's in his name we pray. Amen.
Okay. As you saw coming in, there was a handout in the back, and so you might pick that up. Raise your hand, and maybe they can hand one out for you. In chapter 7 of Hebrews, we saw the writer return to this discussion of how could Jesus be a high priest. What was the problem with him being a high priest if you were a Jew? Yes?
Wrong tribe.
Wrong tribe. To be a priest, according to the law of Moses, you had to be of what tribe? And what was Jesus from? All right. And so how did the writer resolve that? By showing Jesus is a superior high priest because of what? He came from a lineage of high priests that came before the law, during the law, or after the law? Hundreds of years before. And this high priest, Melchizedek, which was an amazing individual, which we know very little about, he was a king of Jerusalem. He's a high priest of God. He blessed Abraham, and Abraham tithed him. And so Jesus has been sworn by God, Psalms 110, to be a high priest according to that order, that lineage. And that's what makes him superior to any of the high priests of the Old Testament, because even since Levi was in Abraham's womb, or loins, remember he talked about that? And when Abraham honored Melchizedek by paying tithes to him, what did all those earthly high priests do through that act? Do you remember that argument? No, Abraham tithed to Melchizedek. They tithed to him as well, because he said, yes, that's right, exactly. And okay, you got your words right. Good. So thank you. And so he's showing that they even honored Melchizedek as superior. So that was chapter 7, verse 1 through 17. Now we're going to look at how preeminent he is and how superior he is. And we're going to call this, he's a priest forever. And he's a perfect priest. And so trying to break it into two sections, we're going to see that we have a better hope because we have a perfect high priest. And when you look at it first, you go, wow, there's not a lot here. But then you start breaking it down. Every verse is just packed full of word pictures, words that need to be defined, allusions back to the Old Testament. So we're going to try to make sense of it all in the 40 minutes we have left. So let's look in Hebrews chapter 7 in verse 17. This is where we left off last week. It's a conclusion. It is witness of him, thou art a high priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. Now on one hand, he says, there's setting aside of the former commandments because it's his weakness and uselessness. What's that a reference to, the former commandments? The old law given by Moses. Very important. We understand that, okay? There's a setting aside, and the old King James says annulling. We'll come back to that. Verse 19. For the law made nothing perfect. On the other hand, there's bringing of a better hope through which we draw near to God. So two things are happening. On one hand, the old law is what? Being annulled, set aside. On the other hand, we have a new covenant, gives us a better hope, all right, by which we can draw near to God. Verse 20, inasmuch it was not without an oath, for they indeed became priests without an oath. That's talking about the Old Testament priests. But he, with an oath, through the one who said to him, the Lord has sworn and will not change his mind, thou art a priest forever. So much the more that Jesus has become a guarantee of a better covenant. The former priests, on one hand, existed in great number because they were prevented by death from continuing. But on the other hand, because he abides forever, he holds his priesthood permanently. Hence also he's able to save forever those who draw near to God through him, since he always lives to make intercession for him. So, do you see the repeating of on one hand and the other hand? What's he comparing? Jesus to the priests of the Old Testament. He's saying they're inferior, Jesus is superior. And so that's the argument we're going to follow here as we look at it. But I want to go back to what he asked in Hebrews chapter 2. This is where this all started. When he's talking about how Jesus is so much better. And he quoted Psalms 8, where in the beginning of that psalm, we find the writer saying, David, he says, when I look up at the heavens, and I consider your handiwork, remember what was the question he asked? When he sees how great God is. Yeah, why would you even think about me? Now, is that a fair question?
Yes.
You know, when we really grasp, or just a glimpse, I don't know, we can't grasp until we're there, how great he is and how little we are, why would you even think about who I am? Now, the reason this is important, this is a good place to start, is because, well, that's where the Hebrew writer started. Because we're going to see in what God did for us through Jesus, we're going to learn that he does think highly of us, and he regards us as very special to him, and we can have confidence that we're going to live with him someday. And so, with that, we're going to look at another question. Why the Old Covenant and all the things they were asked to do? I mean, it was full of physical objects. First was the the tabernacle, which later became the temple. Were there divine, or God, did he give dimensions for the tabernacle, instructions about the curtains and how the furniture was supposed to be built and how it was supposed to be carried and how you were supposed to set up around it? That was all spelled out. Now, when you look at Exodus chapter 25, when God appeared to Moses when he's about to make the tabernacle, he says, see that you make them after the pattern for them, which is being shown you on the mountain. It was very detailed, many of the things. And we ask, why? Well, we're going to come to that. I just want you to see what he says in chapter 8 of Hebrews. That'll be next week, Lord willing. He says, they, speaking of these sayings of the Old Testament, serve as a copy and a shadow of what? Heavenly things. And to make sure you and I understand what he's referring to, he says, remember when Moses was about to erect that tabernacle? God said, see that you make everything according to pattern. He's quoting Exodus 25. So everything that Moses was shown, all those dimensions are just a shadow of something spiritually heavenly that's far superior. But Jewish Christians are being tempted to go back. They're caught up in the shadows, and he's trying to say, there's something much better than just the copies. You want the real thing, don't you? And so I just want you to see that's going to help us, and we're going to come back to that in just a second, that thought. All right, so let's take that out of there. Notice, he said, on one hand, there's a setting aside. Some Bibles say annulment. There's only one real Christian faith that practices annulment. Who is that? The Catholics. They got this kind of doctrine. Is if you know the right people, go through the right steps, pay enough money. If you marry someone and say, man, that was a mistake, you can go and get the covenant of that marriage annulled. And what does that mean?
To do away with it. It never happened.
As though it never happened. You're still a virgin or you're still single. You're not divorced. It's over. Now, not that this word has anything to do with that, but I'm trying to get you to understand what the word means. All right? It means to do away with. Totally. Now, he says on one hand, there was a setting aside of the former commandment. Why? 2 reasons. Weak and useless. It was of no profitability. And then we're going to go back to this, verse 19. The law made nothing perfect. It's a very important verse. On the other hand, there's something better. It's better. It's a better hope by which we get to draw near to God. But this word draw near really means to come in the presence of. And that's unheard of, to come in the presence of God. I was talking with Sam today that they had so much respect for Jehovah that they wouldn't even say or write his name Yahweh. And that's why they would call him Adonai or Lord. I mean, just to utter his name was beneath them as an individual, because who is man? And the idea that you could draw near the living God, well, that's just amazing. It's astounding. He says that's how much better this new covenant is going to be. So notice we already read in chapter 7, if you're going to have a new priest who's not according to the tribe of Levi, now you're going to have a new covenant. The old covenant's got to go in. There's got to be a change of the law. So let's look at what he's saying here. The word draw near, here it is it's the immediate closeness or imminence, even a presence. James says, draw near to God and he will draw near to you. It's not just a casual relationship. It's getting into the very presence of God. So notice he says, setting aside the covenant. This word means to annul. It's to cancel. It's to render as no longer in effect. Now he's speaking about what? The old law. 613 commandments given on Mount Sinai, repeated in Deuteronomy chapter 5. Okay? That's what the word means. It's used for annulling a treaty, some type of legal law, some regulation. You just totally take it off the books. So it's used in politics and in government. But here it's used about God's covenant with the nation of Israel. So in chapter 9, verse 26, he used it there when it says that he annulled or put away sin. Now, when we have been forgiven a sin, what's the effect of that? It's as if what? You never sinned. That's how strong this word is. God said, I'll remember your sins no more. So the disappearance of the law is absolute. You cannot have two competing covenants at the same time, or else Jesus couldn't be a high priest. You with me? That's his argument. So it has to totally go away, just as absolutely as you put away sin. Now the implications are profound. What are some of them? Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking with regards to the priesthood under the old law, it was something that was changeable every time the priest died. Under Jesus, it's unchangeable.
Well, yeah, we're going to get to that. That's right. Okay, good. Well, some of here is a graphic illustration. The old law prescribed by the covenant that priests had to come from the tribe of Levi, right? And again, our argument, Jesus is from the wrong tribe of Judah, but he is a high priest according to the order of Melchizedek, and that means we got to have a new system. So this one has to be totally taken out. Now there's a group that says you must follow the old law today. Well, there's several, but how about keeping the Sabbath, perpetual covenant? Seventh-day Adventists. Then there's Worldwide Church of God. There's others. I don't know how they deal with this. And they try to make a distinction between the old law and the ceremonial law. They try to divide the law of Moses into two parts. This says what? The law. It incorporates all of it, and it's totally what? Removed. Totally removed. Now, I don't know how they deal with that. But they can't. If they understand the Hebrew letter, there's no way they can say, well, this law is still in effect. Because the Sabbath day was part of the old law, wasn't it? It's one of the 10 Commandments. There's another thing. A lot of Christian people in the world that hold to a form of Christianity teach that someday Jesus is coming again after the rapture and all that. He's going to set up his kingdom. A lot of people are waiting for the temple to be rebuilt. You've heard that. Yeah. What's going to happen when the temple's rebuilt? Sacrifice is going to start again. They're waiting for it. Some of the Jews too. What does this say about the possibility of that ever happening? It's not going to happen. That whole system is totally what? Wiped away as though it never happened. Because it's a shadow. The real thing is here. You don't look at the shadow, you don't need anymore, because you have the real thing. All these things were a copy and a shadow of heavenly things. Now, someone had their hand? Yes?
Matthew 24, talk about the destruction of Jerusalem.
That's That's when it happened.
One stone will be left on top of the other.
That's when God put his exclamation mark on annulling all this. Yes.
If they would have looked at it the way that God intended it to be, they would have seen that all that happened under that old law was a tutor to bring them to Christ.
That's right. That's right. Well, yeah, that's exactly right. So let's look at what this middle verse 19 says. The law made nothing perfect. And that's really important. Because what does nothing leave out? Nothing. All right? Now, this is the Hebrew. He says, I'm not saying this. The law, which was perfect, holy, and good. Romans 7 says that. But its effect, what did it do for the person or anybody? It made nobody or nothing complete. The idea of perfect means acceptable to God. Now, why is that? You give me some reason why the law made nothing perfect, from what your understanding of the discussion of the law through the New
It told
Testament.
you what not to do.
Huh? I'm sorry?
It told you what not to do.
It told you what not to do, but yeah, and it also told you what to do.
Yeah.
That's right.
But, so it was, anytime you went against any of that, you,
Okay, good. There's 613 laws. What if, in theory, you kept every law exactly every day of your life? Could you be
perfect.
righteous, in theory, before God? Acceptable?
Yes.
Yeah. The problem is what? When you mess up one, you're guilty now of what? All of it. Oh, yeah. So you guys got it. So it was weak in that it was perfect in that it pointed out sin. It was very good for diagnosing sin. There it is, there it is, there it is. Paul said, I didn't know sin until I became aware of the law. Then sin became alive. And the second problem is what? When you did sin, what? Someone have a hand up first over here. Yes.
They take it forward, they don't forgive it totally.
Oh, okay. That's going to be the argument in chapter 8 and 9, that under the old law, was there any forgiveness of sin?
No.
There's no provision once you mess up to make yourself acceptable to God again. Well, what about all those sacrifices? No, the blood of bulls and goats will never what? Forgive sins. So that's why he says it's weak and it's useless. He's not saying it's of no value, it's not good, but it can make no one perfect or righteous or acceptable for God. Nobody. So why would you want to go back to that? Why would anyone want to hold to it today in any shape or form? Especially in the name of Christ, it's blasphemous to try to uphold the law and accept Jesus as our high priest and king. Because they are totally contrary to each other, aren't they? Can you see that? One had to go for Jesus to come. You can't have both.
One thing that the old law rolled your sins forward to Christ.
Yes.
So if you're doing it now,
You can't roll them. Yeah, you're right. It's a problem. Yes.
Well, it seems to me that it had to be somewhat perfect because it was designed by God, but he had a more perfect way that something had become over and overtaken because he would not have put it in place if he didn't want it to happen.
Well, it was perfect in that it was holy and it's good. It was God's covenant with these people. It was designed, as Galatians says, to point out sin, to make you realize you're a sinner and you need forgiveness. So when Christ came around, they should have been ready. So he said the law was a tutor to take you to Christ and say, there he is, there's your answer. Oh, thank you. Most Jews miss that, all right? And so it had its purposes, but this is an emphatic statement. The law made nothing complete or perfect.
Kind of like a blueprint, isn't it? Like a blueprint.
Well, it's a copy and a shadow of heavenly realities. That's why I showed you those verses. And don't get caught up in the copy and worship it. Worship the reality, Jesus. And that's what they want to do. Yes?
It was designed for a specific group of people in a specific part of the world. How would it, even if they could bring back a genealogy
Right.
and have the priest, how on earth would we in Salem, Oregon be able to worship in Jerusalem?
That's right. But we have to remember, and you're correct. The context, this is the letter to the Hebrews. So these would be Christians of Hebrew faith. And we would have no reason to go back to this, but they would have a big poll, right?
Right.
Yeah, so just want to keep us mindful of that, yes.
This is a really bad paraphrase, but didn't Paul say something about, when he was talking about what a sinner he was, and if I don't keep the law, well, it's not the law's fault, you know, it's my fault for not being able to keep it. That the law was perfect.
Holy and good, he said that in Romans 7.
Served to
Yeah.
show where he was fatal.
That's right.
It's not, it's like,
Yeah, it
don't
was
blame
his
the law.
fault. Yeah. The law was good, but we just couldn't, and it made no provision to forgive you once you did mess up. Right? Yeah, that was a good paraphrase. All right. So weak and useless, it was useless in providing forgiveness. All right. So let's go on. Inasmuch though, as it was not without an oath, they indeed became priests with an oath. He was an oath to the one who said, the Lord has sworn. He said, okay, let's talk about on one hand, the law had to be put aside. On the other hand, we're going to have a new one. On one hand, how did you become a priest in the Old Testament? It's hereditary. It was just given to you because you're born of the tribe of Levi. Were you deserving? No, I mean, did you have to want it? No, you're going to, that's your lot. You've got to be a priest. Okay? Now, on the other hand, how did Jesus become a priest? What does it say?
With an oath.
An oath. It was God swore. And he quotes Psalms 110. The Lord has sworn. Who wish we could talk about God when he swears? When one of the biggest sins against God is, well, he said, don't take my name in vain. Now, often we think that's just use it as in vain. Oh, just using his name as an exclamation. But any time that you'd swear and you'd invoke God's name as your witness that what you're saying is true or you'll do it, and you don't follow through, what have you just done? Taken God's name. He takes that so seriously, it's punishable by death. And you say, well, why? Well, because what you're doing, you're invoking God who is true and righteous and holy and created everything and cannot lie. And he's saying, as He's my witness, and you can't swear by anything higher than that. I'm going to do this, then you don't do it. What does that show you about your attitude towards Him?
You don't respect it.
Not at all. So when God swears, who does He swear by?
Himself.
Why?
Because there's no one behind it.
That's chapter 6. We ever read that. So when God says something, by the very premise of who I am, I'm going to do it. Now, sometimes He pronounces judgment and swears, and sometimes He pronounces blessings and swears, but what can you be assured of, no matter what they are? It's going to happen. When God swears, it's irrevocable. He's sovereign. It's going to happen. And when He promises something, especially to Jesus, you're going to sit on my throne and you're going to be my high priest according to the order of Melchizedek, what do you know is going to happen? Well, I don't like it. It's not fair. It's blasphemy. You're calling God into question. So when God swears, we just have to understand, get on your knees and just make sure you're lined up with what He just promised to do on the right side of it. Because we don't understand how serious this is. So that's why He says it. All right? So, with that being said, they were appointed by Jesus appointed by a promise. Psalms 10, again, the Lord has sworn and will not change His mind. Why will He not change His mind? There's this one answer.
Because you never make the wrong decision.
Well, that's true. It's wisdom. He'll never make. But this is a choice. It's not a right or wrong choice. When He swears, He does it because He wants to. But why will He not change His mind?
He can't.
He can't. I think so. It's impossible for God to. So why is it impossible for life? Some people say, well, God's sovereign, He can do anything. No, there's certain things He can't do. What can He not do? He can't lie because that's against His nature. People make these silly scenarios. Can God make a rock that's indestructible? And you say, well, yeah, because He can do anything. Well, could He destroy it? Well, if He can't destroy it, then He's not all-powerful. Well, you created a contradiction. You know what I'm saying? And God cannot lie. It's the same that he can't deny himself. It's impossible because that's just not who he is. It's impossible. Yes?
There's times when God had considered bringing judgment, but he hadn't declared it. And where
That's right.
Moses interceded and stepped in the gap, and then God relented from that.
That's right.
But he was considering it, but he hadn't swore by it.
That's a very good point. He hadn't swore. Like he went and sent Jonah to Nineveh as he swore he was going to destroy them. But the message was, if you don't repent, I will.
That's right.
It was a conditional. And what did they do? They took it seriously. We don't want to be on the wrong side. So they repented. And so, yes. Okay. So, it's interesting. Jesus now has become a guarantee of a better covenant. The word guarantee is what we get like down payment or a co-signer. Someone's in jail and you need to post bond and you are the bondsman or you post the bond. You're saying, I will back this up. You can count on me. Jesus is the co-signer of this great covenant. And I said, well, why would he do that? Well, he's trying to get us to understand how guaranteed this is. Now, when you see, when you buy a new car, you buy a vacuum or computer, you ask, is this guaranteed? Right?
Yeah, 90 days.
Yeah, 90 days. Oh yeah, it's got a 5-year guarantee. Okay? And then the company goes out of business next year. Right? Your guarantee is what? Have you ever tried to make a claim on a guarantee and we were just frustrated because they wouldn't honor it? Yeah. See, the guarantee is only as good as the people that are. That's right. Who's our surety, our guarantee that we can approach the living God and live with him forever? Jesus. And what is he backing it with?
The Word of God.
First of all, himself. And then his blood. And then we're going to see as a high priest his position as an intercessor for us. We're going to see that in a second. Yes?
Well, the big people say, well, he forgave the Hafer, whoever was on the cross.
Yeah.
And then they say, well, why can't he do it? Right? They don't realize the covenant started
That's right.
after his death.
Yeah. The main verse is going to be in verse 25. And I want you to see it now. We're in chapter 7, verse 25. Here's kind of the theme of this whole section. He is able to save forever. Now we think of being saved in past tense, don't we? When were you saved? Well, I was baptized, December, whatever. We think salvation often is a one-time event, that there it is, and then we're just struggling trying to get through life. What does this verse say? He's able to what? And it's in this continuous tense. And it's not just save one time, but save how often? Forever. That's interesting. First Peter talks about trials that test your faith, and the outcome of your faith, what is proved, is what? Do you remember? The salvation of your souls. So there's still salvation in a future tense. Because has anyone really been saved?
We're not.
You say, and you heretic. But you're right. Explain thyself.
We're not in heaven yet. So we can still change our mind.
All right, salvation is promised to us. But is anyone in heaven with God yet? No, you won't get there until you die or Jesus comes. Is that not true? So Romans says, we are groaning with all the creation, groaning to be adopted as sons. And what we hope for is not seen yet, because if it was seen, it would no longer be hoped for. That's chapter 8 as well. And what's he talking about? Our adoption in heaven, our salvation. It's only in what? Promise. Now, are we his children? Yes. But have we been saved from this wicked world and this death that is preeminent or imminent on all of us? Not until what? Get out of here. I just want you to see that. And so he says, the Lord has sworn. He can't change his mind. What has he promised you?
It's going to
I've saved you, I will continue to save you until you're there. So much so that he's going to save us forever as long as we do what? Here's the operative words. Those who do what? How often they keep drawing near?
Every single day.
You keep drawing near so he can keep saving. And the reason people aren't going to continue to be saved is because they quit drawing near. And that's why he said in chapter 2, what are you going to do if you neglect such a great salvation? We got to pay serious attention lest we drift away. Isn't that where it all started? You don't understand how serious this is, the Hebrew writer's saying. It's guaranteed, but you got to keep drawing near. And so that's the guarantee. Jeremiah, he says, I'll make a covenant with them. Speaking about the one we have with God right now. I will not turn away from them to do, I'll make an everlasting covenant with them that I will not turn away from them to do them good. And I will put the fear of me in their hearts so they won't turn away from me. And then he says, Romans 8, here's part of this guarantee. If God didn't spare his own son, I love this verse, but he gave him up for us all. What else has he got to do to prove how serious he is? What else can he do? He gave the biggest gift that he could give to save us. So don't you think he's going to do anything now to keep you safe? He'll give us freely all things that we... It's guaranteed. There's no way you cannot go. As long as you are.
Don't quit.
Keep drawing near.
Well, I mean, with that, and that's the assurance it gives us. You draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. And so, then again, it's just a question of where you're at. That free moral agency rests with us up until the day we die.
That's
you
right.
have the option to choose. He does not want to grave you screaming and hollering because you're going where you don't want to go.
Well, I know, but we're here because we want to go. So that's,
Exactly.
You're right. You're right. But I remember Hebrews 6, where's this anchored, our hope? Where is it anchored? It's not in the ground. Where is it? In heaven. And anchors are pulling you.
Yes.
And that's what I want you to see here. This is so sure, it's so steadfast, it's so guaranteed. You get excited, it starts pulling you towards heaven. I really want to go. This is really happening. And you get more and more excited about it. And less unsure. And that's what the Hebrew writer is trying to get us to see. So, let's talk about the former priests. On one hand, remember, we're back to this comparison. They existed in great numbers. I tried to find out how many high priests there were. One site said 78, the other one said 76. But were there a lot of high priests?
Yeah.
You can get a list of them on different sites, and it doesn't matter the exact number. The last high priest served up until the time of what? Destruction of Jerusalem. So when God said the mystery's finished, I'm done. Okay? They existed in great numbers. Why? Why did they have to have one new high priest after another?
Because it was changeable.
That's right. It's because of death. He was a great high priest, but he died. Next. He lived for a couple years. Some of them only did. Next. There was a continuous succession of men who were high priests. He said, on the other hand, let's talk about Jesus. I mean, can you count on high priests? He's always switching. You just get to know one, and now there's a new one. He might not even like you. You're from the wrong tribe. Seriously, you got a problem. But Jesus, on the other hand, he holds his priesthood what?
Forever.
The word permanently means unchangeably, unalterably. You can't revoke this. He cannot be moved out. It doesn't mean just permanent. I mean, this is just sovereign issue of God. He holds it forever. So as long as you need him, who's going to be there? Jesus. All right? So let's go to the next one. He lives. Now, here's this key verse. You should highlight it. He is therefore, since he is sworn by God to be high priest forever, he's able to what? Save you forever. Second of all, as long as you draw near him, to God through him, since he, here's why, always lives. Now, how long is he going to live as high priest? Forever. What's he doing? What does he live to do always as he's living forever as high priest? He lives always to make intercession, and then you got to take the them out and put what? You in it. Okay, let's understand the word intercession, okay? Because it's a very important word. Boy, that's font change. The verb to save is used absolutely, which means Christ will save in the most comprehensive sense. He saves from all that humanity needs saving from. That's an important thought. When the word he uses save forever, the word forever in some version says to the utmost. Now, I don't know what's going on in your life, so it's just a sin. No, you might have relationship problems, you might have sin, you might have guilt. What can Jesus do? How thoroughly can he save you?
Thoroughly.
Whatever is ailing you, he can fix it. He'll save you from it. That's the promise here. Now, how does he do that? This idea of making intercession, all right? We have to look at this. But before we do, I want you to see this question. When he says he's able to save us forever, we have to understand what we're being saved from. Now, we could answer that in many ways, and we could have a big discussion, but the common answer is like, well, he saves us from sin. He saves us from death. He saves us from hell. But let's go back and review just some of the passages in the book of Hebrews so far. When we ask this question, maybe it'll help us. Hebrews 2 said we got to pay close attention to this salvation because if we neglect it, what's going to happen? He said if the word speaking about the old law received just penalty, how are you going to escape if you neglect this great salvation? In other words, if there was a penalty for neglecting the old law, if you neglect this salvation, what will you incur? Sounds like a penalty. Now in chapter 3, he said about the Jews, they were right at the doorstep of entering the promised land, but because of lack of faith, God swore, here's that word, in his wrath, they will not enter my rest. They were on the wrong side of God. And so they wandered in the wilderness until everyone dropped. Remember that? God swore in his what? What do we need to be saved from? His judicial judgment about against the people that are belligerently unrighteous. And so, in Hebrews chapter 3, he provoked them. He said, who provoked them when they'd heard? He's talking about these same Israelites. Wasn't it all that came out of Egypt? Who was he angry with? Then we go to the next verse in chapter 4. Let us fear. Fear what? Because just as God swore in his wrath that they won't enter it, we won't enter either. What do we see it repeating up here again and again? God's righteous judgment against those who choose not to draw near. And so, we see in chapter 10, if you go on sinning willfully after receiving the knowledge of truth, there's no longer a sacrifice of sin. See, willful sin is no longer drawing near to God, is it? You're drifting away when it's willful. You just choose it as a lifestyle. It's not that big a deal. He says, no more forgiveness, but here's what you can expect. A terrifying expectation of judgment. That's God's wrath. It's righteous. Someone told me today they were angry. I can't remember what it was about. It's about some crime that had been committed. They were angry. And I go, oh, that's righteous indignation. That's wrath, isn't it? We all experience it. And God does too. And he has to make the scales of justice balanced. A terrifying expectation of judgment, the fury of a fire which will consume the adversaries. In chapter 10, verse 30 and 31, God said, vengeance is mine, I will judge. It's a terrifying thing to fall in the hands of living God. Because our God is a consuming fire. What are we saved from?
Ourselves.
The wrath of God. Which we what? deserve. We all deserve it. I mean, that's the whole story of the Bible. We deserve it, but God's going to do for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. That's grace. He says, I'll let Jesus take care of that. So when Jesus died on the cross, we'll get to this verse yet. He said he offered up himself. He didn't just go to the cross to die. He's offering up himself. What does that mean? What do priests do? They offer sacrifices to appease the wrath of God. And Jesus didn't in the garden when he's crying and when he went to the cross, he just isn't just dying. He's offering up himself as an ultimate sacrifice one time for all people, for all sins. So you can have the guarantee you're going to heaven. Is that beautiful? And so this intercession needs to fall in with someone in order to converse, to make petition, to make intercession. Plead with a person either for yourself or someone else. The word fall in means this. Suppose like, man, I got a problem with my property and there's my neighbor and Bruce says, oh really? He says, yeah. I says, yeah, I don't know what to do. He says, tell you what, I'm friends with the governor. I'll put a bug in her ear next week when we have lunch. Really? Now what is he doing? Intercession. Because he has a relationship with someone who can make a difference. I don't. You remember they say it's who you know, right? Not what you know. You do that for me? He says, yeah. Even though you give me a bad time in class, I would do it for you, Jack. Thank you, buddy. Now wait. We're not talking about Bruce here. We're talking about Jesus, the creator of the world. The King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, and he's been exalted, and he sits where? Who does he have an ear constantly, 24/7? And what is he living to do as your high priest? There's no way any of us would make it if he didn't stop his interceding. Now, you have to understand this. You have trials every day. So, God, I can't make it to the day. Who's pleading your case to God right now? Who sends angels down to serve you? Chapter 1 and verse 14. Jesus. So now that doesn't happen. Whoa. Luke chapter, I have it up there, 22, so I couldn't remember it. Jesus said to Peter, Peter, Satan has demanded to sift you like wheat. He's going to turn you upside down, and you're going to be tempted to just abandon your faith, and maybe you even kill yourself like Judas does when you deny me. Now, I elaborated on what he said, but didn't know what he said. Satan has demanded to sift you like wheat. But Jesus said, don't worry, because what? What did he say?
When you go backwards.
No, you skipped the part. Behold what? I've prayed for you. That's intercession. How did Peter survive? Jesus prayed. He lives to save you. And he saves you. He's interceding for you when you're at your darkest moment and you don't think you can make it. And you go, how did that work out? Because he was talking to the God and Father of all the universe to give you help. And we say, well, man, I think I'm on my own. No! You don't understand what a great superior high priest we have. He's constantly doing this. He lives to do that. And do we doubt it? We just have to believe it. Okay, I'm almost out of time, so I can't take any more. He pleads our case to God. Romans says he sits at the right hand of God and intercedes for us. He's our advocate. That's a paraclete. He's always pleading our case like a lawyer. Has Jesus ever lost a case before the judge? Not one. No? All right. So we look at it. It's 24/7. He saves forever because he's always interceding. We're going to stop right there, and we'll pick up the rest next week. All right. Is it guaranteed?
Yes.
All right. Just keep drawing to God. All right. Thank you.